Welcome to the Proven in Practice podcast. I am Sasha Schultz. I'm a chiropractor and strength and conditioning coach in Kelowna, BC. My business is Rehab2RX, where I specialize in helping fitness athletes train, optimize their program while dealing with pain and injury.
And I'm Jeremy Meredith. I'm a former CrossFit affiliate owner of 14 years, a CrossFit athlete since 2008, a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu brown belt. And my company is Essential Coaching, where I help people of all walks of life gain confidence and inspiration through health and fitness, mostly specializing in CrossFit athletes.
All right. So first episode, 1 week, a little less than 1 week before the Open starts, 2026. What do you think is coming up?
The obvious: toes to bar, thrusters, burpees. There's like rumors of a new movement coming. I think the clue is that it's not a new movement to CrossFit, but it's a new movement to the Open. So I'm not sure what that looks like, but fingers crossed we don't see virtual shoveling in the Open.
Yeah.
Do you remember virtual shoveling? Were you there for that?
That wasn't, no.
Oh, virtual shoveling was like a workout that came up on CrossFit.com probably almost 20 years ago now. And it was like a barbell. You put a 45-pound plate on one end of the barbell, or a 25-pound plate on one end of the barbell, and you tapped it to the floor on one side of a bench, and then you tapped it to the floor on the other side of the bench. And you would do reps just tapping it to the floor on one side of a bench.
Nice.
So maybe we'll see it, but I don't think so.
No, probably not that. I kind of feel like it'll be a dumbbell split snatch or something like that.
That's probably the safest guess, right? Like the most realistic guess of something that we might see that's new and novel.
Yeah.
Split jerk.
Yeah.
The problem with things like that, though, is there's always people going after CrossFit for standards, right? Like, why don't we have a standardized season? Why don't we have standardized movements? Why don't we have standardized equipment? What's the burpee standard? Well, it's a jump. Okay. Well, what's the difference between a jump and a hop and a stiff and a stack? And it always gets kind of like muddied and gray. And then you throw anything with this split into it, and you're kind of like, oh, what can I get away with? We had split snatches at the CrossFit Games in 2012. And the rule was, I think the standard was that your toe had to finish behind your heel. So it was like everybody just it was like a stepping muscle snatch.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Nice. So yeah, let's get into those different stages. So what separates people that are trying to make quarters, trying to make semis, and then what those kind of, what the programming, what the peak, what the taper might look like for those different stages. That make sense?
Yeah.
Do you like that?
Yeah. We talked about this a little bit. You can kind of bucket people out, right? Like obviously semifinals and gains level is like, they're so close together at that level that they're kind of in one bucket. And then you've got your like bubble semifinals athletes, your quarterfinals athletes, and your open athletes, people who are competing in the Open. The thing that I always try and consider most of all for people who are doing the Open to do the Open with no aspiration of moving forwards is safety. So one of the things that I like to do, I run affiliate programming as well as individualized coaching, is I'll always run people through, starting in January, a big deadlift cycle. So we'll build up to some heavy and higher intensity deadlifting, and then we pull the intensity back and we just work on volume accumulation. So that's a big one, right? Like I don't want people getting hurt doing 100 deadlifts and 100 bar facing burpees in a 9-minute cap workout, because they're going to be sending it. So we can be proactive and we can prepare the tissues for things that we know are coming, or we can sit back and moan when those workouts come up and cry about safety. Another one that I put a lot of emphasis on is upper body pulling movements, just kind of like strengthening the shoulder girdle, right? So we'll run through some sort of hipping pull up or butterfly pull up or chest to bar pull up progression, as well as incorporating like some tempo pull ups. So like twice a week, we're going to do pull ups. Once is going to be a kipping format with the intention of building volume for your like open athlete. We're looking for like 50 to 60 contractions in the 1 hour session that week. And then the second session would be like anywhere from 20 to 30, maybe like a 3-second lower sets of 5 to 6, working at like an RPE. So those are the two areas that I focus on with open athlete, and then developing skills, like we'll do a ring muscle up progression or a bar muscle up progression, and double unders are in twice a week. They're once in the warm up and they're once in a workout, so that people are getting touches on those things and they can push to get that RX designation inside of the open. What are your kind of thoughts? Like, obviously we come at these things from different views. I'm like this kind of blend of performance / having owned a gym and my livelihood, depending upon those people continuing to attend my gym. If I break them once
Yeah.
a year and then they never come back, I have to be really mindful of that. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I love that. It is kind of funny when people, you know, like we talked about before, we'll get to the open, and then they'll complain about one of the workouts, right? It's like, you could have just prepared for this. It's not that
Yeah,
complicated.
absolutely. It's
And
every year.
yeah,
Every year we had a workout. It was 23, 27, 21, 15, 9 thrusters and chest to bar pull-ups, 104 or 105 reps or something like that. Like, we know it's coming. Just prepare for it.
that deadlift progression sounds really nice. Getting some volume in of the things that you know are going to come. Like, and it does, deadlift like preps you for pretty well for dumbbell snatches too, right? And like hang cleans and stuff. It's pretty good prep for all of that. And then you obviously want to do some specific prep for those movements if you can. Those are equally important for preventing those disasters, but also like getting a decent performance for the people that are just doing the open, or maybe they're thinking about quarters. Like that that's pretty good. That's a pretty good start.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Quarterfinal athletes.
Yeah.
Should we jump into those guys?
Yeah. Yeah. So what separates the people that are, let's say, missing quarters from making quarters? Like just
Yeah.
missing.
I would say the people that you can separate quarterfinals athletes into two buckets. One is the high fitness, high work capacity bucket, and the other is the high strength, high skill bucket. So these are people who can do everything. They can do ring and bar muscle ups. They can do handstand pushups. They can do double unders. They can cycle heavy barbell. They have everything that they need to. They may or may not have the work capacity and the fitness to support that. But because they have that, they're not getting log jammed by these kind of like cutoff points that happen so often inside of the open, where a workout might finish with ring muscle ups. And, there's like 100,000 men with the exact same score. And then you get that one ring muscle up and boom, you leapfrog all 100,000 of those men's scores, and you just skyrockets you in, right? And then you add 2, 3, 4 ring muscle ups. As you go from 1 to 2, you might pick up 500 spots. 2 to 3, you're going to pick up 400 spots. 3 to 4, 300 spots. So because they have these skills, they can leapfrog hundreds and hundreds of people without having any fitness to support it. And that's not to say that they don't, but they just don't need it because they have all the skills. And then in the other bucket, you have these people with insane levels of work capacity, where you get workouts that are like really simple ones: dumbbell snatch, burpee box jump over, shuttle run, burpee pull up, and they can just outwork anybody. And then they hit some home runs, which aggregate their scores into a qualifying score, but they're still missing that ability for as a man to cycle 185-pound barbell, or do more than say 10 kipping handstand pushups in a row, or 5 kipping handstand pushups, or or any strict handstand pushups, something like that, right? So those would be the two buckets that I would separate people into. And what do they need to get there? What does the taper look like? What does kind of like preparation for that look like for somebody who is intending to compete at quarterfinals? Well, the big thing is the extension of the season, where you go from a 3-week open to essentially a 5-week competition where you still have to qualify. So you can't just like set the open aside. You still have to qualify. And then you have to stay fit for another week and a half as the open wraps up and we go into quarterfinals. And then what you really need to be prepared for is this big weekend event where you're going to do 6 events between Thursday and Monday or between Wednesday and Monday, however they structure the season for that year. Now we've got recovery demands and we've got like a much bigger step up in terms of movement demands. So that preparation is going to be kind of, like peak for the open, maybe plan to hit your peak and taper around week 1, taper through, ride it, and then come back up and recover for quarterfinals to give your best performance.
So let's say that athlete that's, just trying to make quarters, they're going to peak for the open. What are you doing to their training volume the week leading up to the week 1? And then how do you change that for weeks 2 and 3? What do you think? Are you thinking drop the volume quite a bit, or you keep the volume pretty high, modify maybe the intensity a little bit more? What are you thinking?
I think that's where it kind of gets into the individualization of the athlete, right? So let's say we've got that big work capacity athlete. What I'm probably going to do is keep their volume relatively steady, not worry so much about it. And I'm going to hit skills really, really hard, right? I know that they're going to recover from the work, and hopefully we can push them to the point where they're getting that like 1,000 spot leapfrog just off of one single rep. If it's a really, really skilled, strong athlete, so a high power output athlete, but they're lacking that fitness, which is what would put them into this quarterfinals only bucket, then I'm definitely going to pull their volume back and make sure that they're focusing on recovery and execution so that they can get the most out of what, like their talents, is they want to express themselves to the absolute best. And fatigue is not going to do them any favors. Whereas the high work capacity athlete, fatigue, they're probably used to it. It's not a big deal. It's not really going to slow them down. What matters is we stay on top of progress through being able to like capitalize on small wins if we can get them. Small wins with big outcomes.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
What are your thoughts?
The skill, the high capacity person, it makes total sense, right? They don't need a ton of more fitness to make it through. They need to get those skills in order, right? So you do a shitload of practice and let their fitness kind of maintain, right? Definitely don't do any running or erg stuff, burpees. But like if they are maybe not going to get them, like if they're going to miss muscle ups, they better be doing a lot of muscle ups, right? Or double unders even. So that makes perfect sense. The other one is like a little less obvious, I think. Like the person that's got all the skills and, maybe doesn't have quite the capacity. The obvious answer would be to build up their tank, right? But then if they get too much fatigue, it's not going to help them. So that's an interesting
And it's
one.
honestly it's far too late anyway.
It's too late to get it.
You kind of want to zoom out and assume that you've done the correct things leading up. Whereas this high work capacity athlete, we don't need to do lots of volume to drive adaptation. All we really care about is doing things that are going to get them better at the sport they've already possessed. I always think of like, when you're playing video games, RPG type video games, and it's like, oh, my speed and my strength and my stamina, and their stamina bar is all the way out here. So like, let's just ignore the stamina work for a little bit. It can be in there 2 times a week just to maintain, but we're going to really focus on the speed and the strength and the skills. And then as you approach this open stuff, The stamina work is the stuff that's really fatigue inducing, but they're only doing it twice a week. So we don't need to make any changes. Whereas the high skill, high power, low work capacity athlete, they're probably doing 4 work capacity sessions per week in preparation for it. So we're going to pull those back and we're going to focus just on executing and getting the most out of what they have already, as attributes.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're pulling them back because they should have been doing a shitload.
But now we want to manage that fatigue,
Yeah.
whereas the other person wasn't doing a shitload. So there's nothing, you assume that these papers exist for a reason. So we're like peaking. And then, well, we can't live here forever at this high output because we're going to experience overtraining symptoms or kind of like accumulated residual fatigue. So we have to pull back. And if we're lucky, we get a super compensation where performance really boosts going into competition. But those work capacity people aren't doing that. They're just staying steady all the way through, just working progression. Whereas the low work capacity, high skill person is doing that. So at a certain point, we'll have to pull back so that they can either get into like a more homeostatic zone or experience some level of supercompensation.
Yep. Yep. Makes perfect sense. Just have to have the context. And if they weren't doing enough, you might say, well, better luck next year, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
Right.
always the thing, right? Like you should have started sooner.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay. So that's the person that's just trying to make quarters. What about those that are just trying to make semis for the first time or later, but they're not sure they can make it? What are they doing? They're going to probably pretty easily cruise through the open.
Yeah.
And then they're going to, probably have to they can do some sort of peak for quarters. Right. And
Mhm.
that's a little bit simpler too, because it's all going to be one weekend. That's a, less complex, you know, peak and taper, right? Can be the kind of a traditional like week before kind of deal, right?
Yeah. Yeah. The first thing is going to be is that the training volume is going to be another big step up, right? And the movements are going to be another big step up. Instead of doing exercises that are going to get you your first ring muscle up or make it so that you could do 10 in a workout, you're training at a level where you're doing sets of 10 unbroken inside of a workout. With regards to the open, you're probably building volume through the open with the intention of peaking towards the end of the open a week and a half, 2 weeks out from quarterfinals.
Yeah. The open workouts will be part of your quarterfinals prep.
It's one piece
Yeah.
in a multi-piece day of training
Yeah.
for those people.
Yeah.
Yeah. How the training would look, it would look quite a bit different in that because you're focused on these like single session performances and you're competing against people who are more peers than when you compete at the open, you've got a broad spectrum of competitors. So there's varying levels of fitness and ability. When you start getting into that like true competitors phase or competitors realm, you really have to start considering the technical and tactical side of training. So like, okay, you've got 10 ring muscle ups, but how many times can you do that? What is the cost? What is the economy of your movement? What is the cost of exercise? What is your strategy inside of an exercise? What's your row or your bike or your ski pace on this? If we're doing some sort of shuttle running, how fast am I doing my shuttle runs? How fast am I doing my burpees? If there's barbell cycling, am I doing singles? Am I doing touch and goes? If there's a set of 100 wall balls, do I go 40, 30, 30, 25, 25, 25, 25, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10, 10? That strategic piece becomes way more important because the band of ability is much tighter. We all have the skills. We all have the capacity.
They're at that point for a reason, right? They've got it all. but they got to put it
Yeah.
into, at the right timing, put it into, into one complete package.
Hmm.
Do you think, so obviously there's still people like, obviously there's still people with specialized or like strengths and weaknesses at any point. So you're gonna have people that are amazing with barbell and not as good on, gymnastics and the cardio, right? At that point, do you think the the kind of the crux of making the semis is more likely to be a discrepancy in performance between those different kind of variables or a strategical kind of lapse? Where do you think that falls mostly?
I think it at the semifinals level, it still probably leans more towards work capacity.
Fassi.
Yeah, the ability to sustain high rates of work for sustained periods of time,
Yeah.
okay, for long periods of time, the ability to like continue to do reps, stay on task. There's the mental game that goes along with it too. But I think for a lot of people, the work capacity, like just the ability to do the work. And then at that level, people who are in quarterfinals, hoping to qualify for semifinals, mm, more often than not, I would say it's probably barbell strength is the thing that will like really hold you back
Hmm.
because everybody can do head
Yeah.
muscle ups now.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
The skills in the gymnastics where you used to see people who just they couldn't do outside of say strict handstand push-ups. That's the one thing that still really gets people, but it kind of lives in that realm of like 1RM strength.
Yeah. It is a purely a strength movement, pretty much.
Yeah. And then the ability to recover between efforts. But that
Yeah.
leads into that work capacity piece.
Yeah. So you think
What are your thoughts and what do you think is holding people back from making it to that next level?
from making semis level?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think, I don't have enough experience with those, like working with directly with those people. So I don't really know where they're falling short. I think, barbell certainly makes sense because like the level of the level of strength in the games now is pretty nuts. Like
It's outrageous.
the the 1 rep max events are now like, a 365 clean and jerk is dog shit.
Yeah.
So,
And
and
these you weak, quote unquote, weak guys are scoring at 365. And you're like, oh,
yeah,
and they were weak 5 or 6 or 8 years ago in competition. And now they're hitting weights that would have won that event or placed top 5
yeah,
in that time period.
yeah,
Still dog shit.
yeah, exactly. So that definitely makes sense. That's come a long way. So I think the days of you know, the the gymnastics freak that just kind of squeaks by on the barbell are kind of over, right? It's like
Yeah.
Cody, what was his name? Actually,
Cody
he was,
Anderson.
well, wasn't he? He could
He's
clean.
unbelievably strong.
He was just also really good at gymnastics.
Yeah. I feel like for a guy like that, when you talk about like neuromuscular efficiency, and that guy is squeezing every little bit out of himself. And when you do that, it just doesn't leave a lot of repeatability or sustainability because he just moves so well and so efficiently. And he can at like 160 pounds or 180 pounds or however much he weighs, he's not a big guy, clean 385 or almost 400. You're like,
Yeah, it's nutty.
like you could probably only do that once a month, let alone, 5 times in a 5 minute period.
Yeah, true. Did he have was this naturally good too, or was it he like just a clean kind of guy? Was he
I think
just
he's got a fairly good snatch.
pretty good?
I haven't seen much of his content lately, but he did post a 480 back squat the other day. I think he's like kind of grinding for a 500 back squat and a 400 clean.
Triple bodyweight back squat. Nice.
Yeah. Oh yeah, he's legit.
Yeah.
Yeah, people. It kind of depends upon the competition, right? Like if you'd asked me that question 5 years ago, I'd probably have a different answer. But now the way that the competition is trending, where they're favoring machines a lot more, they're using heavy barbells a lot more, and the barbell weights are much, much heavier. More people are able to do those heavier weights. And if you can't do them, it is quite punishing.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you think the machines will be as prevalent in the semis as in the games?
Semis probably not, no.
There's so many more events at the games, right? So I guess it's not a really great comparison, but
Mm-hmm.
seems like there will be a row and maybe a bike in the semis.
Yeah, you might see air bike in the semis.
I guess there'd
Well,
be
for sure.
running last time, wasn't there? Was it running or was that just the teams? 800.
In semis.
Yeah. Was that just for the teams or was there individuals?
Last year in semis. I
Mm.
don't remember. I think there was running.
It was virtual, right? And they did 800 and just like the camera just showed the gym. Well,
Yeah,
it's probably running 800. I don't know.
I'm getting my semis. So was that last year what they did?
You did up
The
to
clean and jerks, the 800 and the clean and jerks at 185.
anyway. There may or may not be a run. There'll definitely be a row, maybe a bike,
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah. Bike is big enough now. I think enough people have echo bikes in their gyms that there's no reason why they wouldn't use it.
Yeah, yeah. And then probably like burpee box jump overs. Yeah, probably a
Right.
bunch of blunders.
Yeah. Crossovers.
Yeah,
Some sort of a higher skill movement, handstand walking. You would likely see like big sets of some sort of gymnastics movement, 50 or so, kipping handstand push up your toes to bar,
yeah,
that kind of thing. Repeated sets of 20.
yeah. So just get strong. Is that the
Yeah. It's kind of like,
stronger? That's
it,
the
it's
capability.
definitely the key to the stadium, right? It gets you in the door. It gets you in the conversation of competing at the high level is you need to have adequate strength. And I think that's the most important thing to like progress through. Your fitness can get you to quarterfinals, but it's not enough to get you through quarterfinals. If you're strong and you have all the skills, you can definitely get to quarterfinals and you can like compete at quarterfinals. Even if you're not able to move on to semifinals, but you're actually going to be able to compete and do the workouts. Whereas high work capacity people, they may not even be able to start one of the workouts. Yeah, I think strength keeps you competitive. Is the takeaway, right? Like having strength and having skills keeps you competitive, whereas having work capacity can get you there. But if you can't lift the weight, if you can't budge the barbell off the ground, then you're not even, and you can't even start the workout, then you might have made that stage of competition, but you can't actually compete in it. At least the person who has the strength and the skills, it might take them a very long time to get through it, but at least they can do it.
Yeah, and they're going to be safer. Like that's definitely one of the things that'll keep you, in the game is having that basic strength, right? If you're just strong enough to do a lot of this stuff, and then you're getting there fatigued right near your max, like that's when shit's going to go wrong, right? It's like if you don't have a reserve of strength, then those heavy deads like in a workout are going to crush you, right? Or the rebounding box jump overs, you're going to snap maybe if you haven't done the strength work for that. Strength and plyos, obviously plyos too, but yeah.
Is that where a lot of your work with rehab to perform comes in for the CrossFit competitor? Is that kind of what guides a lot of your thinking? is how do I keep this person healthy throughout their journey to whatever competition they're going into?
Yeah. Yeah. Like it's kind of the same. Often it's the same process, right? Like they're injured because they did stuff that they just weren't like ready for, or they did too much really, really suddenly a lot of the time. So just like giving them some consistent preparation, giving them some kind of guidance is going to prevent a lot of those issues.
The open athlete, what is like the Rehab 2RX protocol for the open athlete?
Yeah. So it'd be so kind of like you mentioned with your deadlift cycle, and even pull-ups, right? Like it's the same, but they might be starting from a scaled version if they're actually injured, right? So their cycle might start, hopefully further back than like a month or two with, let's say their shoulder's pretty banged up, overhead carries, and then overhead squats because they haven't been able to do a snatch for months, right? And there's going to be snatches or cleans in the open for sure. So, we can't just start doing snatches right away because they just get blown up every time they do it. So, some kind of progression that takes us to those movements that we know are going to be in there. So it's the same process. You just might be starting from like a bit of a scale.
Oh, and what about in terms of injury prevention? What's your method? Because you mentioned strength, right? Like being stronger makes you harder to kill.
Mhm.
So what's the method for giving you resiliency through the open, assuming that you're not injured? How do we, because the best way is to just not get injured at all.
Yeah,
So
sure.
open, quarterfinals, semifinals, how do I avoid injury? How can I be conscious in my training to make sure that I avoid injury at each of those stages, at each of those levels?
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely managing fatigue will be the biggest one. So if you're putting a lot of hours in, you just got to not get things out of control. Right. And if some big efforts are coming up, you're going to be doing some kind of probably going to be backing off to some extent before those come up. Right.
Mhm. When
So,
you say managing fatigue, how do you quantify fatigue? Like when you use that word, what do you mean?
well, could be mostly subjective measures with people that I'm working with, right? Like it's going to be to some degree symptoms, right? If they've had some amount of injury or they're just working through some kind of like chronic pain, they're going to be tracking those metrics. But also you might be performance, right? So like if their lifts are feeling, kind of shitty at a weight that should be pretty easy, even if it doesn't hurt, we're like, you're probably a little bit too banged up right now, right? So,
Right.
how tired are they? Do they have symptoms? And then you break that down by either the region, like where they have symptoms or where they've had problems in the past, or by like movement, it could just be the squat numbers aren't looking so good. Cleans feel hard, rather than, oh, knee hurts with whatever, right? So subjective measures for sure, but could be performance to some extent.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And really that appearance of pain is secondary to fatigue, right? Like we're going to get injured after we do too much. It's unless it's
Yeah.
like an acute contact style injury, these fluke type injuries. We're not, it's not like, oh, your your L2 vertebrae has a slight rotation to the left because you slept without your pillow between your legs last night, and now you hurt your lower back deadlifting. It's like, oh, you did like 165 deadlifts in your workout yesterday, and the last time you deadlifted was 3.5 weeks ago, right? So, and that's kind of like the fatigue mechanism. And then 2 days later, oh, dumbbell snatches or whatever have you, plyo hops and then 300 wall balls.
Yeah. It's usually going to be fatigue first, the other outside of those, pretty, severe traumas and kind of like just bad luck, right?
Oh, yeah.
Uh, but yeah,
Fell off brains.
and people will, especially the people that are like super, super into it, you know, driven, former athletes or, current CrossFit athletes, type A, they're gonna like ignore a lot of those early signals. So just having them start to track it, then you can start to prevent some of that stuff, right? It's like, oh yeah, my shoulder was a little sore today, but whatever. And then 2 days later, they're doing another handstand push-up workout, and oh yeah, shoulder's like a little bit more sore, but it's still not a big deal, right?
Yeah.
And then the next week, it's like a bunch of clean and jerks, ladder, heavy, increasing weight, and then the shoulder blows up or the neck blows up, and they're like, I didn't even do anything. It was it even happened. It's like,
Yeah. I didn't do anything.
so
Yeah.
that's like,
They don't recognize it until it's an injury, right? That's not getting better, a persistent chronic injury. But I guess as like, a responsible coach, it's your job to recognize those things early and make changes accordingly.
yeah. So just starting to track that stuff is usually super helpful because people often don't do it, and then you can just catch stuff that
Is
people.
there anything that you're intentionally doing proactively?
Yeah, I mean, that depends a lot on the person. Where could I potentially see them develop problems in the future based on, their either their sporting history, their injury history, their body type or their strengths and weaknesses. So somebody that's, had a lot of shoulder issues in the past, but their shoulders feel fine right now, or, they've got like either they used to pitch or something, right? Probably just going to be proactively working on some sort of shoulder stability, even if they don't have a problem. So, probably throw some carries in there of some sort, probably do a bunch of the modified lifts, like overhead squat, for example, like we were talking about before. Overhead squats, you know, to give them a little bit more stability in the overhead position for snatches. I
Oh,
think you measure.
right. So you're going to kind of ramp up that stuff, knowing, and that's what gives them that strength buffer. So, if I can do, let's be crazy here and say 10 sets of 10 overhead squats at 225, and then the workout has however many, let's say it's a 21, 15, 9 squat snatches at 185, my chances of getting injured with 185 are much lower if I've done that work coming into it.
Yeah. I'm that person. I'm not worried about them hurting their shoulder. If they're asymptomatic going in, I'm not worried about that person hurting their shoulder doing 185 pound snatches.
Right.
Unless
But
the,
if they've had shoulder issues in the past, then you might layer in those. Obviously, you're not gonna have people do 10 sets of 10 because that's silly. But you would start including some overhead squats with the understanding that you don't know what's coming up. And these are the things that I have to be conscious of that could come up. Heavy squat snatching or what have you. Oh yeah, cool.
yeah, yeah. So that has a lot of variability, of course, between different folks, but that's kind of
Oh, yeah.
the
So you've
gist.
got your knee people and your lower back people and your elbow people and your neck people. What would you, because neck is interesting, right? Like, I've got a dodgy neck. I can still do kipping handstand pushups, but I can't do them like I used to. What should I be doing for the workout that has 2 sets of 50 kipping handstand pushups in it?
It depends what you're trying to get out of it, right? So if it's a competition workout and you're going for it, you know, you might just accept some consequences.
Yeah.
I definitely some direct neck work is, I think, pretty useful, but I don't think it's going to prevent, you know, a flare up from slamming down on your head 50 times or
Right.
150 times. So
Maybe not as beneficial as like the shoulder, what you can create a lot more robustness around.
yeah, yeah, I think there are some things you can train better than others, right? I think you can prepare for, you know, overhead stability with a barbell better than you can prepare for direct compression on your neck.
It's, yeah, there's unfortunately we don't have muscles that hold our neck in a long position, right? Like they all do this.
Yeah. So, but I mean, maybe some headstands might, I haven't actually given that to somebody, but that might be part of your long-term progression. Initially it's, if you have a neck, a bit of a touchy neck, doing a bunch of headstands obviously going to make it feel worse. But, you might start with your like neck bridges and your isometrics and stuff, and then maybe work into that direct compression and, try to do a little progression there. I actually haven't done it though. That's an interesting idea.
Be interesting to see how people adapt to it. I see
might,
those wrestlers who obviously have like very strong necks and they have their arms are like this because of the atrophy from all of the neck training that they did.
they don't have a
Right. Yeah, maybe their neck is still strong, but those nerves are not healthy.
And, but part of that adaptation might just be their discs squeezing down to 0 millimeters. So yeah, I don't know. I think your your handstand push-up progression is still part of that, right? So not
Absolutely.
suddenly doing that workout, having not done any yet, because it's still, even if we can't strictly speaking prepare for direct compression, although I think we can with maybe somewhat indirectly, it still matters, right? How you progress and how much you're used to
Mm.
handstand push-ups. So
I suppose the best answer for that would be like train in a way that reduces compression. Like clean up your handstand push-up so that eccentric towards isometric phase where your head is making contact with the ground is as gentle as possible. Make sure your head and neck are positioned in a way that minimizes the amount of like angular forces on your neck so that they're purely compressive forces.
yeah,
And that will probably do you far more good than some sort of neck training.
yeah, I think acutely that's going to be the most important thing. Then neutral spine is probably pretty damn important, right? For the
Yeah.
handstand push-ups.
Yeah.
Your discs will be able to tolerate a lot more. Oh, and the other spinal components will be able to handle more in a certain position, right? So kind of a neutral position. So yeah, probably not doing them like this.
Yeah. Not a good idea.
No.
Yeah. Make sure you like look in the gym. Don't look at your ab mat.
Yeah. But yeah, maybe, doing more strict and more deficit work for those people as well, so they can control that bottom range of motion better.
I have a lot of my handstand push-up limited athletes do tons of seated overcoming isometrics just to like train proper body posture and really give them the strength to be able to break and change direction as they're coming into the bottom of that handstand push-up, because that seems to be the thing that goes, right? It's just like, my old weightlifting coach guy used to say, whenever I'd miss a squat, he'd be like, "Oh, how did you miss that? It went down so easily." And that's the joke about handstand push-ups too, right? Like they can lower, but they just struggle to change direction and press back out of it. And a lot of that is core position, but it can just be that simple muscle quality of, like yielding the force and then creating a stiff isometric contraption that you can change directions around.
So like you do like a Z press, but with the overloaded barbell.
I'll do it on a bench because it's easier, but I just set the J hooks up. Barbell goes in the rack. You're sitting on your bench in front of it. Barbell comes out under the J hooks, drive into the rack. Like we usually start like 80 to 85% effort, 3 sets of 5 seconds for 3 to 5 cycles of that. And then we increase the intensity just because I know that when people really give her, they can get kind of like if they have a sort of an aberrant pressing pattern, then that extra tension in the neck, they can get kind of like a neck injury, if you will, it can set them back for days to weeks. And then you layer on the sleep disturbance of that neck injury and all of their training is suffering. And now you're looking at like a potentially months long training setback just because we started with too aggressive of an intensity on what should be a, a very unstressful exercise.
Yeah. Yeah. That's definitely in the people that I see, the active people that I see, that's definitely the most common source of neck pain is overhead lifting.
Like pressing around their face, right? It's
Yeah.
not off the shoulders. It's not a lockout. It's in this zone. Yeah. Ah, my neck.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm going to jet out, but over the weekend, I'll send you the link to the recording.
Beauty. Love it.
Okay. See you, man.
Have a
Have a
good
good
one.
one.
Cheers.